This video was made possible by Wix. If you're ready to create a website, head over to wix.com/go/infographics2019 to try out one of their premium plans right now. We've all heard stories about MREs, meals ready to eat, and some of us have even had the opportunity to taste it for ourselves. But what kind of food has the military traditionally eaten, and what are they serving up today, both at home and when deployed to the remote corners of the world? Believe it or not, food is a really big deal to the US military. It's said an army marches on its stomach, meaning that an army is only effective if it's well fed. And this is as true an adage in our modern age as it was thousands of years ago. At the DoD's Combat Feeding Directorate, at the US Army Natick Soldier Research, Development and Engineering Center, try saying that name 3 times fast, researchers are constantly looking for ways to improve both the quality and the nutritional content of the food that our troops eat. Here, the focus is on creating food that can be stored for long amounts of time and yet remain fresh, while also having high marks for taste and exceptional nutrition. All of those things are important because you never know how your supply lines are going to be disrupted in wartime, so personnel must have access to food that can last a very long time. Taste is also important because good-tasting food means good morale, and nothing can sap a fighting man or woman's morale quite like bad food. And of course, nutrition is extremely important because of the extreme physical demands that combat has on the body. Soldiers need clean and healthy food that will provide the right mix of vitamins, minerals, and calories to keep them fighting for weeks, months, potentially even years at a time. And poor nutrition has resulted in many historical defeats throughout history. At the launch of the Revolutionary War in 1776, the Continental Congress decreed that every enlisted member of the Continental Army should receive peas, beans, or vegetables and 1 pint of milk per man. They would also be allotted a daily provision of meat, typically salted beef, and bread. Without any food preservation techniques aside from salting though, the perishable items given out were often in very poor condition, which resulted in lots of sick soldiers, and a lack of fresh fruits and vegetables also led to large cases of scurvy. Some soldiers even died from the low-quality food. General George Washington recognized the epidemic of poor nutrition affecting his troops and wrote a letter to Congress asking them to correct food delivery issues, which led to a renewed focus to supply troops with fresh vegetables, sauerkraut, vinegar, beer, and cider. In the early 1800s, Napoleon Bonaparte recognized the critical need to keep troops well fed while in the field, and offered up a 12,000 franc reward to anyone who could develop a method by which food could be preserved for months at a time. Nicolas Appert thus devised a method by which food was kept preserved in airtight bottles, and crates of these bottles were sent to sea with Napoleon's navy to test the method of food storage. The bottles proved to be a great success, and soon all of Napoleon's troops were being supplied with bottled foodstuffs, which dramatically improved the nutrition and morale of soldiers who were used to eating moldy bread, bad fruit, and heavily salted meat. 10 years later, the British began to can food inside airtight tins, a practice which spread to the US and was adopted by the American military. When the American Civil War broke out in 1861, both sides were enjoying meals out of tins, yet keeping troops supplied with adequate food stocks still proved difficult. As a result, typhoid, diarrhea, and dysentery caused by contaminated food and water supplies was widespread and resulted in many casualties. However, when possible, an emphasis was placed on good nutrition, and the Army of Virginia published a guide entitled Directions for Cooking by Troops in Camp and Hospital, with an emphasis on diets that were rich in meat and milk, whole grains, fruits, and vegetables. The reality sadly fell quite short of the standards though, and many American soldiers still suffered from poor nutrition. In World War II, the US military adopted a variety of different rations. The most common of these was the C-Ration, which was made up of pre-cooked and canned goods. They were meant to be used when troops didn't have access to A rations, or food prepared fresh in mess halls and field kitchens, or B rations, food prepared from canned items. Soldiers could enjoy meals such as meat and spaghetti and tomato sauce, chopped ham, egg and potato, and pork and rice. Initially, selections were very limited and soldiers complained of low variety and bland taste, but the quality and diversity gradually increased, though never to quite gourmet levels. Still, the US rations included items such as cigarettes and chocolate, luxuries unheard of in other militaries' meals, and field kitchens would often serve up ham, bacon, and egg breakfasts to soldiers on the front lines. When US propaganda agents dropped thousands of leaflets on the starving German front lines showing the rations that Americans enjoyed, the ploy was wildly ineffective for one reason. It was too far-fetched for the Germans that Americans actually enjoyed things like bacon in the midst of war. The C-ration persisted as late as the Vietnam War, despite having been phased out in the late 1950s. The meal, Combat Individual Rations or MCI ration, would replace the C-ration, although in truth it was only a modest improvement over the former. The MCI did feature a wider variety of menu items in order to improve morale though, an important development because of the nutritional problems caused by soldiers skipping meals due to being sick of the same exact dish time after time. The MCI consisted of a rectangular cardboard carton, inside of which was a M-Unit can, which was the meat-based entree item. This came in 12 varieties, though subtle differences in their preparation eventually led to a total of 18 entrees available, a huge improvement over the 5 or 6 flavors available from C-rations. Soldiers could thus enjoy things such as beefsteak, chicken or turkey loaf, chopped ham and eggs, meat chunks with beans and tomato sauce, or beef slices with potatoes and gravy. Then there was the B unit, also packaged inside a small tin can. These would come in 3 varieties and consisted of 7 crackers and 2 chocolate discs with peanut butter spread, 4 hardtack biscuits and a cookie sandwich or fudge disc, and 4 cookies with cocoa powder, which could be mixed with water to make a chocolate drink. The D unit or dessert unit had 3 different types as well. D1 was halved apricots, sliced peaches, quartered pears or fruit cocktail, D2 was pound cake, fruit cake or cinnamon nut roll, and D3 was simply white bread. An accessory pack with salt, pepper, sugar, instant coffee, non-dairy creamer, 2 pieces of candy-coated chewing gum, a packet of toilet paper, a 4-pack of cigarettes, and 20 moisture-proof matches were also included. Though the MCI was an improvement over the C-ration, soldiers developed weird superstitions which last to this day. Most notably, the ham and lima beans entree, which was disliked ever since its introduction during the Korean War. The ration was considered bad luck, and even just saying its name was likely to cause tragedy, and thus would only be referred to as ham and motherfuckers. Many troops also believed that halved apricots were bad luck to eat during combat operations, and would discard them from their meals unless they were safely behind friendly lines. The pound cake proved wildly popular though, and remains so to this day, though the fruit cake, much like in civilian life, was widely detested and typically discarded. In 1981, the MCI was replaced by the Meal Ready to Eat, or MRE. A giant leap forward, the MRE was not only lighter than the MCI, but included a flameless heater with every meal, which let any soldier anywhere enjoy a hot meal without any fire. In a pinch, the flameless heater could also be used as a diversionary explosive device, adding combat functionality to each MRE. When first sent out on field tests, soldiers gave MREs high marks, especially for the flameless heater, which let them enjoy hot meals even in combat conditions. However, soldiers requested that the servings be made bigger and more meal variety, and today the MRE includes 24 main entrees, with 150 supplemental items and options such as vegetarian, so that the service members with dietary restrictions or from different cultural backgrounds can always find something to eat. A study by the Institute of Medicine would go on to discover that service members burned approximately 4,200 calories per day during combat operations, and yet only consumed about 2,400 calories from their meals. This would be due to soldiers not consuming the full portions of their meals or discarding parts of each meal that they didn't like. The military responded by manipulating the quantity of quality food items, as well as increasing the random variety of each MRE, so that soldiers within a unit could freely trade back and forth the things that they did not like for the things they did. They also improved the distributions of nutrients throughout the meals, scientifically packing as much nutritional value as possible into each bite so that soldiers would remain well fed. The old superstition over food items has persisted even to this day though, and instead of being afraid of apricots, American soldiers today are terrified of one specific candy item: Charms. Originally packaged as a candy treat, the sugary squares come in a variety of flavors and colors, and yet almost from their inclusion in MREs, soldiers have refused to eat them. Charms were seen as the worst of luck, and different colors meant different things. Green meant rain, red meant death, and raspberry was total disaster. Any soldier caught opening one of the candy treats from his MRE would immediately have it slapped out of his hands and be thoroughly chastised for risking the entire platoon's lives. This superstition over Charms grew so intense that eventually the military was forced to end its inclusion into MREs altogether, as the candies would simply be piled together at mealtime and chucked away, or preferably buried. Old MREs, however, still make up a large part of the US's food logistics system, and inside these older meals, the evil candy still lurks, waiting to claim their next victims. Other food items, however, were the opposite, and the wildly popular jalapeno cheese has become a sort of currency amongst deployed troops, along with cocoa powder. With these two items, you can buy just about anything you desire, and debts are expected to be quickly repaid once back home. Over the centuries, the food that soldiers eat has changed dramatically, and as technology has improved, so has the quality, quantity, and the nutritional content of the food. Today, it's unthinkable that soldiers would be lost to malnutrition and nutrition-related illnesses, and soldier nutrition remains a top priority for the Pentagon. And you know what should be a top priority for you? Getting that great website that you've been thinking about up and running. Maybe the one where you rank all the different combinations of MREs. Wix makes it super easy with their drag-and-drop interface and hundreds of fully customizable templates to help you get started in minutes. Or if you're in a food coma from those delicious pieces of preserved pound cake and can't come up with any ideas, Wix's powerful ADI feature will put together a great-looking site for you in just minutes by answering a few simple questions. Try out Wix today by visiting the link in the description or going to wix.com/go/infographics2019.